Pish posh nonsense. We're never going to get anywhere with this pressurized air stuff. Time to harness the power of nukes. Same with energy.
We got so many.
We got to harness. We got to use a bunch of nuclear energy. Get our energy solved forever, and then we can focus on the stars.
Renewables are cheaper now. Apparently, renewables are cheaper now than nuclear. Nuclear is so regulated that it's just more expensive over time.
But it's not like it's doable. Like we could just make nuclear.
You got to lower regulation,
and it'd be way more efficient. Well, then lower regulation so we can have nuclear power plants. But there's a bunch of money and like the alternatives now. They're lobbying against that. Makes sense. Bunch of silly billies trying to make money.
Wait, what are you for?
I want a nuclear
power plants with less regulation.
If regulation's what's keeping us from doing nuclear power, then we need to, get on whatever needs to be handled there so we can do nuclear power. Because it's just the most efficient. It's the most effective. It's pretty much forever. It
seems to me we should have.
There's no downtime.
Why is it the most efficient?
It's the most efficient by far. I got into reading about this a few months ago. So I found one site that was it's actually the least efficient, and here's the breakdown. And you click two little things on there, and you see it's brought to you by the Alternative Energy Coalition. And the way that they get those bogus instruments or measurements where they're solar's more efficient in this way. What they assume built into that is that solar doesn't require maintenance, doesn't have downtime. Enormous sums of time on solar plants isn't being used because there isn't sun being absorbed. It's much easier to break. Apparently, there are huge problems of this one breaks and therefore a bunch of other ones did, and I have to do a lot more hunting and pecking and trying to figure shit out. Whereas once you get a nuclear reactor going, it kind of just goes. And it's always pumping it out, always. When wind is shut down for huge portions of the year, nuclear is pumping it out. When solar isn't working for huge portions of the year, nuclear is pumping it out. And it's also more central. And so it's not some field the size of New Hampshire that you're having to go through it.
You don't have to sell me on it. I've always thought it was the way to go, just because I thought it was cool. We went and visited the Kiowee power plant when I was in middle school or high school. I don't remember which, but you know how memory works. I don't remember if I saw it with my eyes or if they showed me a video of it, but we saw the pool where the cooling rods were, and it glows down there. It's probably light. It's probably lit, but it looks like it glows. And there was a humming noise.
That's pretty cool.
They've got those rods that are in there heating that water up. And I don't know, just walking through there, of course, it's a prop. You walk through a whole learning annex, and it's the other kind of propaganda. They tell you that a banana is actually more radioactive than this entire power plant, Timmy. Well, unless we have an accident and run out of cold water, which would never happen unless, we did.
As long as you keep infrastructure rolling, it'll work just fine.
Yeah. It really doesn't seem like a great idea to me to have one in somewhere like Japan, which is earthquake, tsunami, and Godzilla capital of the world. Bad things can happen. They can interrupt your supply of water to keep the thing cool, and then you actually do have that meltdown fiery thing that's scary. But Jesus Christ, why can't we fill Montana up with those cooling towers?
Exactly. Dude, nuclear is the coolest energy form by far. By far.
I don't know how energy transfer works as far as for example, if we made a whole bunch of power in Montana, what happens when we try to pump it to Georgia? If we just run a cable to Georgia,
a couple hundred miles
far,
is cool.
Right?
Yeah, I don't understand the details of it. I know you can ramp up the voltage, and then the losses are lower, high voltage AC transfer. But what you called out was probably a little hyperbolic from Montana to Georgia.
Yeah,
that's way too far.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you can't have that.
But
maybe if you had some Elon Musk battery fields that my nuclear is charging, and then I can put those batteries on diesel powered trucks and send them to Georgia, because that's pretty much what we're doing now.
I don't see anything wrong with this.
Every time you plug a Tesla wildly inefficient. You want to ship batteries from Montana?
We're going to support American truckers, Taylor. That's a big part of this bill. I promise you.
You've somehow taken nuclear and made it unworkable.
Hear me out. Electric trucks, and when the batteries get to Georgia, they're not charged anymore. But they're there.
Now they use the diesel to send them back to get charged.
You back, Slush?
Yes. I have returned.
That's how the Biden economy works. I saw this thing today about all the.
We're talking about nuclear energy and how cool it is.
I think it's
talk about. the
It's pretty
I like
disconnect
nuclear
between-
energy too, and I definitely like it when we're talking about replacing coal, oil, natural gas, like some of the dirtier ones. Sometimes I hear it like when people pitch nuclear energy, they do it to shit on like hydropower, wind power, and solar. And I'm like, I don't know, these things seem to have some value too. It seems like we're letting a lot of just like free energy just float by not
feel like
harnessing
a
it.
good mix would be the way. But
Right. And the one thing I like about
well,
solar
shit
is
like not diesel would be great because like you can literally see the pollution.
Yeah, people coal rolling. I was driving behind one of
Yeah.
those guys recently. Fuck him.
Patriot. Keep your mouth shut.
that guy's cool.
Diesel's
No.
fucking so expensive in your
Dick's so
fucking
fucking girthy.
That guy was like that guy was trumped out the back of his car.
You didn't have
He has
to,
a huge cock.
I had you at roll coal. I knew
Yeah,
who he was voting for.
I 100%. No part of me was like I was about to see an "I'm with her" sticker. Like there's no fucking way. Yeah,
I just think whenever I see the aircraft carriers, the submarines and stuff that are nuclear powered, and they're like, yeah, a piece the size of a golf ball powers this for 2 years. I think that's fairly accurate. It might be 5 years. It's something stupid like
It's
that.
insane.
And I'm talking about an aircraft carrier, the thing with 3,000 fucking sailors and 150 planes on it or some shit for years. And it's not like they sit still. We move them around the globe all the time.
You know
It's-
what?
we're cool like that. But come on, I want it to be freezing in here. It's 62 degrees in my house right now. Like I like it cold.
Why would you do that?
You'd like
Because electricity is almost free in Atlanta. Apparently, I every month I get the power bill and I'm like, what? Can we do like 3 or 4 of these at a time or something? Like it's so little. It'll be dozens of dollars.
You've gotten like free water. You've Mr. Magoo'd your way into like free utilities in different ways, and in your head you're like, it's just free. It comes out of the wall. Like, it's just, meanwhile your neighbor's like losing hair. Like, oh my god,
$800. Turn that computer off, Johnny.
Sarah, turn that. Do I hear a microwave ding? I better not hear it.
Put that water in the sunlight outside. Let it
We're
get warm.
household now.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, you're over there, like not even
cold.
using your in-home sauna. It's just on.
I want to be ready.
just some red hot rocks.
Oh, that's the bathroom where I always leave hot water coming out. Just in
Oh, I
case.
don't have to wait.
Hot water always ready. Yeah, it's really cheap. I don't know if it's because we've got nuclear right by here. I don't know where Atlanta gets its electricity specifically, like what power source. We've got hydroelectric and nuclear in the state. So probably a
Nuclear
mixture.
is like the most expensive.
We looked this up and it was difficult to argue with you, but I would imagine over time, without subsidies,
Well, we looked at this
nuclear
up,
just
but
makes
it
so
was
much more sense.
it was multifaceted because
isn't it also about the
site-
volume
the
of
site
energy that can be created and the reliability? You know, you've got that nuclear, you've got energy on tap 24 hours a day, regardless of wind, sun, weather, time of day, and all that stuff.
So the thing that we looked at when we discussed it, like probably a year ago now, the site that we were at was like a literal anti-nuclear site. And their entire presupposition was that, well, if you assume that solar is always in use and has 100% efficiency, and then you assume nuclear is, in use and has efficiency, then actually solar is cheaper. And it's like, okay, well, what are their actual efficiency numbers? And that's the problem with wind and solar, is that they're not that efficient. They can't always gather power. Whereas if you have a nuclear plant, that's creating power always. It's always creating power, barring some fucking, horrible thing. Like it's making power all the time.
It seems like the way to go.
It's the future. That's what I can't
think
believe
we
don't
agree that there's probably a combo that is the way to go. Like solar, for example, produces the most power at times when air conditioners run. Might be a nice way to add a little extra capacity on top of nuclear.
Sure. Especially if I feel like we need those batteries that Elon Musk has too charged up full of energy.
I thought you were an oil man.
I
was an oil man.
The oil should be powering our fucking vehicles and our aeroplanes and making all of our wonderful, like plasticky, magical devices that we create. But I hope we're not burning oil to fuel cities. You know what I mean? Like we're not turning electrical turbines with gasoline or diesel or something.
We do that with natural gas, right?
I don't know.
Do what?
that's how we power a lot of electricity with natural gas and oil. And like, I think like Pennsylvania even uses a lot of coal. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how those.
China's all about coal. I've seen those graphs.
I guess they're all just boiling water, though, right? It's just
as far as I know, yeah. And
so why not use the magic system that we figured out when brilliant minds were like, "Hey, look at this magic stick boils water for basically ever." What do?
Yeah.
You just keep water around it for it to boil.
Pretty much.
But other than that, what do you do? Well, keep people from bombing it. And
there's some other ones that I like too that aren't always dug into. I'm stuck on this tidal stuff. So I'm influenced by the fact that I grew up on an island. And when the seawater raises, the water rushes around the island through the inlets fast. I'll make it up like 12 miles an hour, something like that. And then it goes the other way. It does this all day, every day with the predictability that the sunrise and sunset hold. It's moon based. And I'm like, why don't we harness this traveling water the way we do rivers and dams and stuff like that?
You need some buoys where you connect a cable to the seafloor and you got your buoy. And then as it's lifted and dropped over and over, it can just be cranking out energy for us. But yeah, just a huge field of paddles that move back and forth, you would imagine would just be making
it
so
flows
much energy.
One direction for 6 hours and then the other direction for 6 hours.
Yeah, they just turn it. Yeah, I don't know why there isn't.
I feel like that would take a lot of space in the water, and someone could probably be like, "Oh yeah, that fucks with all the dolphins, or fucks with all the crabs, or something like that." I don't know.
It's like there's somewhere though that we could, like make it like cut an inlet into the land and keep the fish out and still use the tidal forces.
Or build a nuclear power
the
plant.
inlet's 16 miles wide. We can't and not all of it's navigable. Some of it's kind of shallow.
Yeah,
like you can't devote one of these miles to.
Let's just put like 10 nuclear power plants in North Dakota, like right next to Canada, and pipe it all right back. Hot piping nuclear power. They're going to be handing it out on street corners. Get your nuclear power here.
The transmission distances is the problem with that. That's why that's why you can't build them all out in Wyoming or something where you wouldn't mind so much if they melted down a little bit.
Maybe one in the middle of New York. Just one.
The bad one.
No, a really good one. It's the safest. Everyone's talking about it.
The Trump brand one. The Trump brand one.
Yeah, the Trump brand nuclear power plant. I would like that.
It's the hottest reactor in the world.
Hottest reactor. I mean, nuclear power is just so much cooler than all the other powers that like the kid in me is like, do that one. Like do the one that's borderline like magic.
It seems like it's the one. It's the one where they talk about nuclear waste. It's so little. It's so little that it creates.
You haven't considered how much less physical space it takes up than a giant field in the water or land.
I think the
nuclear power plant.
Yeah. They don't take up nearly as much space as like a wind farm or a solar field.
The capacity wind farm you would need. I think the wind farms are ugly. I really do.
They are.
And they put those in like populated areas. So I've driven through them before, and it's like
wind farms.
Yeah, Kansas has a bunch of them, and they are an eyesore.
I drove past them coming back from Chicago. There's some in maybe Southern Illinois or somewhere on the way back from Chicago. We drove through a wind farm.
I've driven through a bunch of wind farms, and I usually think of them as in very unpopulated areas. Farms. Well, it depends what populated is, right? If you got one farmer on 1,000 acres, is that populated? Like to me, it's not.
No.
And every time I drive past those, like half of them are like, all right, so there's enough wind to move that one, but not you or you or you or you. Like what the?
Yeah, I don't know why that happens. But I agree, it happens. It seems like always half are spinning.
Have you seen the video where there's two people on top of one of those, and it's spinning completely out of control and on fire? And they're hugging because they're about to die.
I saw a tornado hit one recently.
No, I did not see the one you're talking about. That sounds awful.
Yeah, it is awful. They're
okay?
No, they died.
They were every bit as good as those Israel refugees or Palestinian refugees.
There was a Hamas soldier in that.
Yes, there was one of them was a Hamas soldier.
Well, we can't confirm he's not.
True.
Yeah,
I don't know if there are any good people over there, Taylor. Biden ended the for-profit prisons with the private prisons for federal prison thing.
I like
That's great.
that.
Yeah,
he's done a lot of stuff that seems pretty good to me. I don't mind the environmental stuff. I saw that he's going to make like all of the federal like fleet electric.
By when? Was it 2035? Am I crazy? Yeah,
Let me see when it says. I just read the headline. I didn't even consider the date. Biden electric vehicles federal.
And I was seeing some politicians did shady shit with Tesla because they knew they bought up a bunch of stock before that was announced about the federal fleet.
Oh,
yeah. Like
I hope they get
Nancy
busted.
Pelosi did it, and some other ones did too. Probably
fucking toss her out. I recognize that she's good at politics and helps my team, but I'm not so attached to bad guys that I want them on my team. Fucking throw her in jail.
Did they get rid of those Republicans that did that shit recently?
No, they didn't.
Well,
not a single one of them.
They always get away with it.
Yeah. Well, now one of them lost an election. So actually, two of them in Georgia did it, and they both lost.
Well, they should go to jail. Shouldn't have to lose an election.
Richard Burr in North Carolina did it. He's fine.
And I bet it's just one of those things. They all do it, so they're not going to hold each other's feet to the fire.
Yeah,
or a high enough percentage of them do it that it's not going to be a thing. They've all got skeletons in their closet.
It's like they have a professional courtesy to let the other people be criminals. You know,
Yeah.
Even if you're perfect and I'm not, it's like, well, that's just Woody's way. Right? He kind of scams and makes insider trades, and
it's ridiculous.
It's not as many vehicles as I thought it was going to be. There's 645,000 vehicles in the federal government's fleet currently.
It's still a lot.
That is a lot,
especially at Tesla prices. Oh, and about that guy, Daddy05. In June 2019, it was reported that Mike has started a SoundCloud channel uploading his music as Mikey M.
Mikey M.
Mikey.
Yeah.
What a rad dude.
If you want to support Daddy05 for some reason, that's how.
He was on 5 years of supervised probation following that initial thing. And then while on probation, like one of the things was like, you can't upload videos of your kid. They like started a new channel and he uploaded a video of his kid. And they deleted that one. Then they went behind a paywall. Yeah, these people are not doing anything anymore.
So I actually can't find anything that talks about when on the federal fleet. This article reads like kind of quickly. And the 2035 thing is General Motors said it would end the sale of all gas and diesel powered passenger cars and light utility vehicles by 2035. So GM says cars and light utility vehicles, which I guess is half-ton pickups and less, by 2035 will all be electric.
Yeah. I don't believe those far-flung...
right?
Like China said that by I think 2060 they were going to be carbon neutral recently. Did you see that?
Yeah, which is to say the next gen can handle it. 40 years from now.
Not even. Like China is currently building either 200 or maybe 300 coal burning power plants. And that's just in China. They're funding a further 200 or 300 on several other continents from Africa, Europe, and as well as Asia. And someone pointed out, but they're the number one manufacturers of solar and wind technology. Yeah, they produce that stuff using coal burning energy so that they can undercut the rest of the world's production and then sell that renewable energy to first world countries, which then makes their energy more expensive so that their coal burning thing just keeps making even more money.
Interesting that they're using... So coal in America is very expensive. It's the most expensive. Coal's dying in America. It's not because people hate the poison that it spews. Mm-hmm. It's because it's more expensive. It's one of our most expensive energy sources. Natural gas is much cheaper, and it happens to be cleaner, which is fortunate. But that's why everyone's switching from coal to natural gas. Solar and wind are both cheaper than coal. So that's interesting, too.
Not in China, though.
Yeah. So that's where I was surprised to learn that in China, coal was cheaper. I wonder why it's different. Is it
a volume thing?
I would say because they've got so much of it and they pay the miners so little and there's no safety regulations.
Is it like a per capita thing where it's like, okay, once we have the panels set up per capita, it's cheaper to continue making solar compared to all the refinement and nonsense with oil? Or is it, so it's like the issue, like there just aren't enough solar panels? Like, Like it's a volume problem. Like if we had enough, we could do it. Or
nuclear energy is going to be the answer whenever everybody stops being afraid of nuclear energy. It's going to be a good day.
That's probably the cleanest thing we can do.
Yeah, you just got the nuclear waste to deal with afterwards.
Just send that to the moon.
How do you get it there?
You just kind of aim.
What if you miss once?
You go like.
The moon has gravity, Kyle. So if you even get close, it just pulls.
Then you have a really cool second moon that glows green and goes around the initial moon.
What if it doesn't quite make it out of the atmosphere? What if
Venus is? We'll get it out of the atmosphere. What year do you think it is? We can do that.
Every now and then,
we're at the sun.
I could show you a montage of rockets exploding in the atmosphere.
Yeah,
but none with nuclear waste on them.
Yeah,
try to make a strong argument there. None of those had nuclear waste. Okay, the nuclear waste will keep the rocket safe.
How much nuclear waste are we removing?
A massive amount.
But wait, that's a good question. I actually don't
literal
know.
Train loads of it.
Is it? Is it that big? Like, can I say something?
They're putting it in Yucca Mountain, right? They used a mountain to store it right now. There's so much of it.
I don't know if is it in Yucca Mountain? I always hear like they're gonna, but I don't know if they're doing it. But in any case,
pretty sure.
I think you're right that it's big. I learned that unrelated. This room is big enough. The office I'm in it's a decent room, but it's not big. It can hold all the vaccine we need to inoculate America. Like the amount of fluid isn't that high. So I was like, how big is nuclear waste? Is it? It's a 55-gallon drum enough? Is that like 4 years worth?
Yeah, no, I didn't know that either. No. I assumed it was like The Simpsons, where like they have one plutonium bar and it takes care of everything.
No, have you seen? It's those enormous rods. Those enormous rods.
Wait, they're not the size of glow sticks like they are in The Simpsons.
No, they're the size. They're like telephone poles.
And he's fine.
Kyle, this doesn't sync up with what I learned on The Simpsons. Are you sure?
All right, we take telephone.
I went to the Kiowee nuclear power plant one time and took a tour, and they're huge.
Dude, I did too, and they gave me a simulated pellet.
Like I have seen them.
They gave me what they're like. This isn't a real nuclear power rod, but it's what they look like, and it was the size of a peanut M&M.
Well, then that's a terrible comparison.
I think they have many of those in like a bigger rod or something like that, because it's those huge rods in that water tank, that cooling tank. That glow.
What about this? You take those. I mean, it's a big rocket, so it can fit a bunch.
We're back to the rocket.
Yes, we're back to the rocket. You can fit a bunch of telephone poles in there, telephone pole shaped things, a huge amount of them, and you coat them all in special material yet to be invented, that in case it goes bad, it's covered. And you don't even need to do that because I'm confident in our scientists' aim. You don't even aim it anywhere close that it can go bad. You just fire it deep out into space. It's somebody else's problem now. Just straight shot past the moon, not even towards other planets. Just kind of out or towards the sun.
I'm pretty sure the cost would be just gargantuan.
Why?
Okay,
because of how expensive it is to launch things into outer space.
Yeah, but if we're getting all our power so cheap, that money, a little bit of that money can go into firing our rockets into space covered with like plutonium or something.
But I mean, it's not free power. Like you've got to run the nuclear power plant, and then I don't like this because I know you're not serious.
I am serious.
Let me be serious.
The maintenance of a refinery, the oil fields, you think that's going to be less expensive than the maintenance of a nuclear power plant, where it's more centralized, fewer people needed to run it?
I know how big nuclear fuel is. I looked it up, and so the rods. It's a rod. It's 4 meters long, 12 feet ish, and the thickness they compared to a gel pen. Right, which is like M&M thickness, but 4 meters long, and they fill those control rods with pellets, which probably is what they gave me when I went there. So it's a cylinder about the size of a peanut M&M, but it's like it's not whatever that is, a weird oval like an M&M. It's a perfect cylinder, and they put a bunch of those pellets, 4 meters worth, in a control rod, and then there's a bunch of control rods inside.
But the control rod has a lot of the smaller rods in it that are the size of a gel pen. I think.
There's many control rods, and just looking at the picture, I would estimate like, I don't know, 18, something like that. And so there's 18 4-meter rods, each of them holding like a thick ballpoint pen. But
how long does that last? Like, how long until that's depleted? Like, how much energy do you get out of that one?
I think it's a couple of years. I think it's like 3 years or something like that. Something like more than 1 or 2, but less than 5 or 6. I think, because I remember like the nuclear aircraft carriers. I read that those use a chunk of fuel the size of a golf ball for some like ungodly amount of time. Like a golf ball size chunk of uranium was enough to power one of those for like a year or something.
Like a nuclear submarine?
No, a nuclear aircraft carrier.
But is that the same thing they do for nuclear submarines? Does a nuclear submarine mean it's running on nuclear energy, or that it can fire a nuke?
Both. Well, our nuclear submarines do fire nuclear weapons, but I think there are nuclear submarines that don't fire nuclear weapons.
So I looked up the how long it lasts part, and they tend to replace the fuel in those rods every 2 years or so. They typically do it in spring or autumn when electricity demand is the lowest.
How expensive is it to make uranium?
You mean to refine uranium?
Or turn it into the shit we need that it's actually useful. Is that not nearly as bad as oil per amount of energy, I would guess?
I think what you want to know is how much electricity costs when it comes from a nuclear fuel plant, right? Would that answer it best?
Yeah, like you'd have to know like per ounce of nuclear fuel rod how many gigawatts of electricity are being produced, and like do some sort of cost analysis that way. I
want to know because I imagine like nuclear is so much more efficient.
It is. It definitely is.
Like by a huge margin.
I mean, if they've got if like the uranium that fits into one of those tanks runs a nuclear power plant for 2 or 3 years, then I mean the answer is obvious.
We just put them all in Hawaii just in case.
But how do we get?
We'll have a series of tubes. That will bring electricity from the island to the mainland. You know what? Let's put them close to our enemies.
Well, there's one fairly close to me. That's very comforting. I grew up real close to one, actually.
So
what do we have here?
This is the cost of electricity from various sources. Onshore wind is the cheapest, followed by solar, natural gas, geothermal, offshore wind. This is like over the water. Coal, nuclear, and the natural gas at peak. Oh, I don't know what natural gas CC versus peak means.
I don't know either.
But
I would imagine that the issue here is like
not enough power plants or not enough nuclear plants. Right?
Well, no, I would imagine the issue is here like, all right, so solar costs much less, right? Am I reading this right? The dollars, but you can't get as much solar because of the area that it takes to put the
panels.
Not enough panels.
My imagination is I'm not sure. I'm guessing one, wind and solar, they're not reliable, right? That's what you're headed at. And the other is what makes it expensive? Is the reason coal expensive because the EPA checks on you? Is the reason nuclear is so expensive is because the government watches it so closely to dot all those I's and cross all those T's and not change anything about the way you do it for 40 years raises the cost. You know, if cowboys tried to do nuclear power, would it be cheap but dangerous, right? Let's not act like it's inappropriate to check on what they're doing. But like, where is the cost coming from? Because you can do solar with not much oversight.
Solar is the second coolest kind.
Yeah, you fuck up once, you melt a house down the road.
Which in itself is kind of like it sucks, but it's
kind of fucking cool, right?
It's not as bad as. But what happens if you fuck up once in nuclear is a much bigger deal.
You get a superhero.
Okay, you're winning me over.
Yeah.
What if it's a supervillain? Then you need to.
You gotta roll those dice. You gotta roll those dice. All right.
It's still kind of cool.
We have to roll the dice and blow up another generator. We need to make a superhero to combat this villain.
Taylor, all we get is death.
Oh,
this isn't working like you
It didn't work
said.
again. They all just got lymphoma.
What we've learned is that it only creates villains. Ruins a lot of plans.
All we have are 11 supervillains, and I can count them on 2 hands.
Yeah. I mean, it is. This time we got a fire guy. It's kind of cool. You know, take wins where you can find.
I like the 2 hands. Yeah, I don't know. I would be all for the nuclear
Solar
thing though, because it seems
we make enough of the panels.
I don't know. Where do you? I just don't know where you put all those fucking the panels and stuff. What's really cool though is I saw where they had that one thing where they've got all the mirrors focusing the light onto the one collector in the middle. That's pretty cool to see.
I'm on the other side with the panel location. I'm like, every roof should be panels. We have so much surface area. Hardly any of Earth's surface area is covered with panels now. Roofs should be the default. And it doesn't really... It costs things in terms of money, but in terms of like quality of life, it costs nothing. You're not using your roof as like fun sunbathing areas or anything. Like it just sits there doing nothing all the time. It should be the de facto standard. I used to think that about cars. Like, why aren't cars just charging? Why don't we just collecting energy? Apparently, it's like a total waste of time. It gathers so little energy. They're like, we could do it, and it would like maybe power a fan that exhausts the hot air in the summer. Like that is a really low interest for me.
Yeah, but if every house had one of those and it was always charging a battery, and that battery was responsible for like the really low use stuff in your home, like maybe there was like 1 or 2 outlets that it used, like your hair dryer, you're keeping your electric shaver and your batteries charged and stuff, things like that, things that aren't like pulling a lot of amperage or whatever.
But AC, right? Maybe. Like I think it can do. I think it can do more than you're giving it credit for. It's not just going to do the dining room table lights like that. There's a lot of surface area on all these roofs.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that's not a. That seems like the sort of thing that I would be happy to have some sort of government funding for. It seems like you should. I don't know. It's just in all of our best interest to have one, like a solar roof.
It does seem like it would be a little world improvement, wouldn't it? Like it's better than.
I'm sure the power plants would love
it. Yeah, there is a problem with inconsistent power delivery, right? Like that's an issue. I want power all the time. I've become accustomed to my sockets just always working. And it shouldn't matter what time of day it is, whether it's sunny out, whether there's snow on my solar panels, etc. So my expectation is that you, Mr. Nuclear plant or natural gas plant, whatever, you need enough capacity so that when you run at 100%, none of us feel any inconvenience. But I want you to operate at 15% capacity so we can use solar any other time. That's a lot to ask, right?
Well, it would charge a battery, right? So that like, you'd be drawing from the battery. So, because obviously at night, you still want your lights to work because that's when you need them.
Especially at night.
Yeah.
So this question is the inverse for Kyle and Taylor versus me. To Kyle and Merca, what political moves by Trump would make you feel that he's doing a bad job?
What a leading bullshit question. This is our stupid thing.
And then they ask me,
identify yourself, sir. You're part of.
Answer this very leading question that starts with you on the back foot. Go.
No, wait. Just let me finish the question. And then he says, to Woody, what moves would make you feel like he's doing a good job as president? I didn't see that as so terrible. Like,
oh, it totally is.
What would flip your opinion of Trump? That's all he's asking.
It's not that like you have an opinion to flip. Like just like with anything, you don't have one solid opinion on one thing. Like when I think about anything, I'm not like, that is all good. Or that is all bad, except for like Cheez-Its and sour cream. Sour cream's all bad, Cheez-Its are all good. But most things aren't that binary. Like there's stuff that he does that I do like, and then there's stuff that he does that I don't. A good example of of not doing is the healthcare thing, trying to ram through, being annoying as shit, trying to primary other Republicans because he doesn't seem to know how to work well within that, and he's trying to just bulldoze through different areas and try and get stuff done in a different way. I don't like. I don't like that. I don't. Well, of course you don't, because you want to see that schism come up.
No, you see, don't assign a motive to me. Like I flip it. Like I ask myself, if Hillary was president, would I like it if she was hiring Chelsea and her husband for like important posts? And I think
yes,
no,
that's fair.
I don't think I like that. It shouldn't be a family business.
Yes, I totally agree with you there. Like the Ivanka stuff, I don't like. It seems like so many people who are Trump fans are just like, oh, Ivanka, she's so brilliant and awesome, and I love her, and she's great. And it's like, no, not really. Like I don't see this brilliant person that you're all talking about and why she should be in these positions or have access to these things that she does. Like, because that is something that's totally
Sarah
true.
Palin in sheep's clothing. We haven't heard her say anything of substance.
I felt like I was alone in that.
It's
I'm like, am I just uneducated? Is she brilliant and I haven't been watching enough?
No,
I feel
right.
like all she's done is look great.
She's well spoken and she handles herself with a lot of poise and grace.
Did Trump give her a position in the White House? Did he give her a position?
Not
an official position, just an office.
She has an office and she has top security clearances and she's like part of the team now. And her husband is who the most important person is seems to change all the time. But her husband, they're joking now that his responsibilities are so broad that most administrations would consider this a crisis. But in the Trump administration, it's just considered like a faith in how great he is.
All right, well, let me answer the question.
It's not, or go ahead.
I think it's a super leading question because I think that some people have this idea that Taylor and or I have this like love for Trump that is impenetrable. And every time we see him do a thing, we're just like, but that's Trump. It's okay. Like, no, I'm not a fucking moron. And I'm certainly not so one-sided that I don't see like every step of the way when he's doing this shady shit. There's lots of things I don't care for that I'm seeing out of Trump. It's just the truth. And I won't defend them because they're indefensible. When you run into something like that, you can't defend it. What am I going to say about X, Y, or Z things that he's done that I don't care for? I don't like all the Russian smoke. I don't like his ineptitude. There's no other word for it. I don't like his lack of attention to detail. I don't like his lack of passion for his office. And I love his EPA stance.
I like his EPA stance.
I don't care about the environment anymore. I'm done with that.
Well, that's not the angle to take.
Okay. I don't think that. But seriously, the EPA stuff, I just care very much less about. My water's clean. I mean, Coca-Cola purifies this shit for me. Mm-hmm. All right, like they make sure that there's no lead in here.
But to Kyle's point of it's way too. There's too many moving pieces to really like or hate it as a singularity. Because it's like I really like the nomination of Gorsuch. I think he's a good choice, and so I like that aspect of it. The way that Trump responds to questions about Syria, as an example, where it's almost like, well, it's not almost like, it's clear he doesn't know what he's talking about, and it's almost like he doesn't even seem that interested in becoming more informed of it. I don't like that. And and there's not like a scale somewhere where you can be like, all right, the Gorsuch nomination counts for three happy points, and this is one frowny face, and you aggregate those into 1.5 stars, and like, there's no way to know. There's too much shit to go by. So it's like, there's a lot of stuff he does that I don't like, and there's a lot of stuff he does that I do like.
If that Trump happens when your main source of information is Breitbart and Fox News. That's the reason. I mean, he's listening to them and he's tweeting about them, so I think it's ridiculous.
His Twitter, he needs to settle down.
If Trump were making deposits and withdrawals, with my opinion with him, he makes very few deposits, and it seems like almost everything he does is a withdrawal. And I go through the list. It's a lot of times the list hasn't changed, but the ISP thing is new. There's the bribery thing for energy companies that's not. This new thing with what do they allow? Coal companies to dump ash in the water. The reason he's so pro coal, if people haven't put this together, is that coal jobs are in swing states, right? So he's not governing like the country here. He's trying to win swing states. That's why there's more people working in Arby's. That's a stat that keeps getting thrown around than there are working with coal.
Is that true? I totally understand that is true. I totally understand what you're saying. It is a stupid, misleading way to present it, though, because if you compare the amount of families being supported by those jobs and the amount of money actually going to those people and the amount of so it's like, all these people with part-time, jobs making $200 a week, You know, they count that one job counts the same as this guy who's a full-time coal miner who makes $110,000 a year.
Never mind the industries and services of the coal industry.
It's just a very lazy, misleading way to present it.
I'm not pro
solar does a lot more, but there's a lot more jobs in solar, and the reason he's so focused on coal jobs is that they're in swing states, and that's on a related topic. That's one of the reasons I hate the Electoral College. It seems like automotive jobs and coal jobs, and you can become president because no one else changes their vote, and that sucks.
I don't know why he likes coal. I'm not sure if it had. I think that like attributing it to his want to win swing states is almost giving him too much credit. Like,
no, that's what it is.
I don't know about that. I wouldn't be surprised to find that he will profit greatly if the coal industry does well, or someone he knows will profit greatly if the coal industry does well, or in some way, if the coal industry does well, then this industry does well, and they're the ones who like write all the leases for coal mines or something. It could be so convoluted and complicated that it's difficult to even make out what's going on. But I don't know if this guy has like an election in 4 years on his mind right now when his approval is like 30%, 37% or something like that. Like,
going down.
Forget the swing states, dude. Let's just try to win one for the home team.
So,
right?
To answer the question for me, what do I want from Trump that would like dramatically improve my opinion of him? I would like to see him set up America for some sort of long-term success, right? My initial idea on that is like renewable energy. You know, we could be the solar country where everyone gets their stuff from. We have all the patents and such, and the Chinese are paying us to manufacture. That would be a thing. But I don't know. Maybe there's other things. Maybe faster broadband. Maybe better highway systems. Maybe something that would make America competitive in the long term would really improve my opinion of him. Maybe it's irrigation and water or something that turns us into some better country.
I did some research on the solar thing, and it is a good idea, but it's like we put so much money into solar research and shit every year, and it's not like it's not at the point yet where we can transition a bunch of stuff to solar all in one. Like it provides like what, a single digit amount of power to this country, like 2% of the power, and it's like 2-3%, like nothing. So it's like I want to see nuclear happen because it seems like that would be so much fucking power, and it would be clean, so everybody can get behind that, and we can do it so much safer. But people are afraid of like the 3 Mile Island kind of shit,
where nothing bad happened.
That's understandable. Like but
nobody got hurt.
But psychologically, hearing nuclear, it's like it does trigger something where you're like, solar, that wouldn't hurt me. Maybe a little bit of a red tan, but that's fine. Sunburn, but nuclear, oh god, that'll tear me to smithereens. But that I think that is the future, is nuclear, because it's going to be totally clean. It's going to be so much fucking power. It's going to be cheap.
I was watching a video about a Dyson sphere. Do you know what a Dyson sphere is?
I don't.
That's the idea of enclosing our star or a star in a device that would capture its output. It's a pretty cool video.
Wow,
that is cool.
Yeah, and
it's so crazy what people can do, what we can do now. We's co-opting the success of our species, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, right. I feel like we should take some credit, right? Like we're here. We're a product of their accomplishments. We're a product of their DNA. We're a product of everything that they were and or are. You know, we don't get here without some. We are the descendants of the most badass motherfuckers that like 500,000 or 250,000 years of evolution could fucking form. Not to mention all the infighting and the war and the pestilence and the disease and the beasts of the land. Like, and we're here. We're the product of all that hardcore motherfucking shit.
But so were the Swedes. The Swedes were fucking Vikings, and now they're getting legislation to have to sit down to pee and stuff.
Well,
you know,
I'm looking at solar power production, and like, first of all, it's a little higher than you said. It looks like it's 1.4%, but
it's a little lower.
You said
I said 2 or 3.
Oh, my mistake. Yeah, and I'm trying to get the year on that. The interesting thing about it is the trend. Like solar was like nothing, and now it's like a near vertical hockey stick. Like that number's doubling every year, and so anyway,
I think a lot of that is because we're putting so much more money into solar than nuclear because people don't want to go nuclear.
It's about the efficiency, right? Like nuclear's gotten to where it's gotten, and then we're going to have to start going to some sort of fusion reactor to go to the next level of nuclear. But it seems like solar is almost obeying, what's the law, Woody, for computing process, which
you're
has
thinking
proven
of Moore's law.
Yeah, solar follows some almost a similar growth pattern where it gets more and more efficient. Eventually, solar is just going to be extremely efficient, and the sun is just a gargantuan nuclear engine that we've got for free up there. If we could harness that, sure, that's what
I can just see
for.
A future where like tons of dads are buying, like they're swapping out their roof with a $12,000 solar roof, and then now they've got all this power production, and they can't wait to put their electric car off their roof because.
But Woody, wouldn't you rather have? Would you rather have a $22,000 fusion reactor in your garage, just vibrating and emitting a nice warm glow, powering everything for generations to come?
Will it give me a tan as well? Because solar can do that, and I think that. Anyway.
I do prefer nuclear, by the way. It does seem like the best thing that we could do because hydroelectric has lots of drawbacks from the pollution and all the energy that goes into the creation of the thing to messing up habitats and changing the course of rivers and all that stuff. That can be bad. I don't know what the legitimate downsides of solar are, other than it's quite inefficient, very expensive, and the Chinese seem to have an edge on us, and that's only going to get worse because we've got President Trump.
On the hydroelectric thing, like I'm mostly ignorant on this, but I'll tell you, every time they put it up, it seems like shit gets better. Like I fucking love it. Like
that's what I run on. Yeah, this is hydroelectric.
Really? This is probably nuclear. Anyway. There's these beautiful lakes and lakefront homes in the area, and the property values go up, and it's picturesque. It's amazing. And they say, but there's a fish that doesn't like this, and I say, fuck that fish. This place is great, and it gives me free electricity. Like I'm not so green that I'm like I'm willing to toss away a fish.
I'm on your side with fuck that fish. I don't care about that fish unless it's a tasty fish. But I found this. I was looking up like solar versus nuclear and like the reasons for the debate. I just linked to the article. I've been skipping around it. It says that one major problem with the cost analysis of solar versus nuclear is that solar costs are examined without the installation cost, but simply the price for the module itself. Whereas nuclear costs are full installation costs because it's a building. It's an actual place. Another problem is that a watt of nuclear power provides about 3 times as much energy over a year as a watt of solar power. I don't know what that means.
I don't understand that. Yeah, my initial thought would be they both provide a watt.
Yeah, it seems like what weighs more, a pound of feathers or a pound of rocks kind of thing.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Is one a steady watt and the other?
You guys don't have
watt?
any wind or turbine power in America?
Not very much.
We do. It's just not that much.
It depends.
Because
I know in California
in Holland,
there's a good amount.
It's very popular.
Yeah.
This country's just so big though compared to Holland.
Have you seen the wind farms in California? Like they put them on the ridges of mountains and.
Yeah. I mean, depending on the geography, obviously, but it's very viable because almost 40% of Holland's infrastructure runs just on wind and turbines.
A lot of times,
and it's so efficient.
Dozens of buildings.
A lot of times when they try to erect windmills, there's major political opposition. I guess they make some noise, and people don't like the way they look. I remember in Massachusetts, they wanted to put it off. I forget the town name, but anyway, they wanted to put windmills just offshore, and they were going bonkers over it because it would ruin the horizon and stuff like that. So that you run into that a ton in America. I don't know why.
I don't know. Here they just place them in the middle of a field or in the middle of a ranch or something, and they're not very intrusive. Not as much as solar technology, which takes a lot of space.
It does, but I hear story after story I've read where farmers agree to put a windmill, thinking like, "Oh my gosh, it's just a tower, and it's free money for me because they get like a recurring lease." And then they figure out that it makes a noise, and they find that unlivable. So
they kill birds.
You can hear them.
They're ugly.
I'm so
and
against
loud.
the bird argument. By the way, I put that right next to the fish.
They don't
They
kill
do kill them.
I don't
airplanes kill more
glass
birds
buildings.
than turbines.
Airplanes disrupt migratory patterns. So the airplane's just going to be here today for 1 fucking second. The airplane's going to exist right there. That turbine is now here, and it's not just one. It's the entire landscape is now littered with turbines, and so that every flock of bird, eagles don't fly in flocks. Every flock of bird has to deal with this now gigantic barrier. And I don't care about the fucking birds.
If it takes them more than one, if they go through their pass through, they're in their big flock and they fly directly through a turbine and they go, oh fuck, jeez, we just lost like 6 of our buddies right there. What was it was the spinning thing in the sky that we flew right through. Like, you should only need one fly through for the birds to figure it out. And if they continue flying through and through and through, then that species didn't deserve to exist. Evolve, adapt, be better.
I've heard the bird argument a lot, and I wonder if it's people grasping at straws, or like, how does it compare to a glass building? That's what I'd like to know. Because I don't know, they fly into the glass. If you've never worked in a glass building, birds just fucking hit it all the time. Like, you type it away, and just the birds die, and they think they're flying into the sky because it's reflective. So they go beak first at, I'll make up a number, 25 miles an hour, and they die every time. So
because their bones are little hollow, pixie sticks.
Glass buildings are just mirrors in the sky, and birds fly into them and die.
That's just a good counter argument. That's just an excuse politicians use to keep their interests and their, because they're being paid by the coal industry and by
Are you telling me Donald Trump doesn't really care about the eagles? Because
he doesn't care about that big titty swallow.
Of course not. Donald Trump is a bird man.
That's on the EPA stuff. I like, sometimes I feel like they're grabbing a frog and using that as an excuse to stop development, and I'm not a big fan of that.
No.
But other times,
or when they find a burial ground or something, I'm just like, bulldoze it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like human drinking water and breathing air, that's the stuff that I really like about the EPA.
Like the fact that some of those munitions, I guess, have radioactive materials in them, and all of them have lead in them. And so when they're firing quickly up there, they're just enveloped in this cloud of radioactive lead that they're just breathing in the whole time.
But myth was busted on PKN. You explained to us that nuclear fallout is actually not even pish posh. No big deal.
Well, no. If you want to talk about nuclear fallout, that's real dangerous. That's the materials that have been
on PKA. You said, Tuesday Kyle doesn't think much of nuclear weapons at all.
Yeah, he was mocking them openly.
Yes.
No. Well,
he said, "I dare someone to nuke me."
Well, the idea
I moved
is
to Atlanta just to see if those motherfuckers would try.
Yeah.
But my point was, if you nuked Atlanta, we'd be able to move back in here in 5 or 6 years, and it'd be fine. Like it's not going to irradiate then poison the ground in some way. Like, that's just not how nuclear weapons work.
Here's my thinking on that. I've often I have no doubt that in 5 years they'd tell us we could come back to Atlanta, resume your jobs, contribute to the GDP. It's safe. Trust me. The question I have is, would they be able to lie to me? Like, are there enough? Geiger counters aren't that rare. People can measure it. Are they going to tell me that it's safe when it's not? Are they going to be able to lie? I don't know.
They probably would. Like,
you
they
can
would
visit the Trinity test site. You can go to where the first nuclear weapon went off. You can go to a lot of them, I think. Just because it goes off, again, it's not one of those 40K poison the earth weapons. And going back to the Chernobyl thing, that wasn't a nuclear explosion. That was a steam explosion where the roof blew off from steam pressure. There's no nuclear fission happening. I mean, it's just that the radioactive material is burning. There isn't some fissile explosion like with a nuclear weapon, or that starts the fusion.
I get what you're saying, but it just doesn't seem right.
Why?
Because I imagine a big bomb going off in like Nagasaki and everyone having to be like, all right, next 5 years, we're out of here. But you can actually go back real soon afterward, start rebuilding and shit. Like, clearly you can do that because they did do that for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they didn't have like everyone dying of cancer the next 2 years, So I know what you're saying is right, but it doesn't seem like it should be.
Even Chernobyl. Now, you have to trust the Russians to believe this, but didn't like 3 people die at Chernobyl?
Oh,
maybe in like the actual like steam explosion, but like way more people died in issues like following it.
That poisoned a half a continent. Like they kept that shit secret. The cancers and the stillbirths and everything that created. Who knows what the number is on that?
Yeah.
Who knows is perfect because that's where I'm stuck, right? They told us the nuclear fallout was like washing over Europe and then across. Like, it went up and then west. It's something to do with the way the winds were going at the time. And that like mushrooms were going to be dangerous for some very long time. I don't know. 31 people died as a result of Chernobyl. The UN estimates that 50 people died, and a further 4,000 might eventually die. Well, it was a while ago.
Well, they're talking about the dosage. They're talking about the dosage initially, like there that 4,000 would die. But like again, it was that burning fire of radioactive dust and particulates and goo and vapor and all that stuff that was floating and then settling on people. That ash that lands on you that's radioactive and you stick it in your mouth. That's the poison.
But if you died at 75 instead of 76, did Chernobyl really kill you?
No. But dude, that's one of the best miniseries I've ever seen. I think it's like a top 5 all-time miniseries.
It's
Chernobyl.
solid.
When those people are dying of the radiation sickness later on, it's like, man, you got to sneak your boy a handgun into that prison or something. Into that hospital. Like, you can't let him go out like that. They kept that one guy alive for so long. Oh,
yeah. They were letting that pregnant woman just hang out in the nuke wing, and the woman kept being like, "You are not allowed to be here, but I will like run cover for you, even though that baby good as dead."
Yeah, yeah. The problem was her husband had absorbed so much radiation that he was radioactive. He was giving off the radiation and poisoning the baby that was inside of her womb, because he was one of the cleanup guys, like pushing a shovel, like scooping up chunks of like radioactive material, and that whole thing was great.
I'm always coming down hard on NASA because I want them to do more cool stuff, and they're on a fucking 60-year drought of cool stuff, and so we need to see something neat. How about this? Launch nukes at the moon. I want to see how big nukes have gotten since we first invented them. Because, you hear stuff where it's like, the Nagasaki bomb was actually bitch made compared to the Tsar bomb that the Russians tested. And now the Tsar bomb is bitch made compared to this new hypothetical one that we have. I think the Tsar bomb wasn't nuclear. It was just the largest traditional bomb ever, right?
No, it's the biggest nuclear bomb ever built.
We never beat that?
No. It hasn't been exploded yet, so you don't know.
So they did explode it. They tested it.
Am I wrong? Okay.
They dropped it in Siberia out of a cargo plane. It had a parachute. It was enormous. It couldn't be towed by any, carried underneath.
I want a bomb so big that we can see it hit the moon.
You would see a nuclear weapon hit the moon, but there's a test ban treaty. But I think the Russians just pulled out of that, right? I think they literally pulled out of it. So maybe it is okay to go ahead and hit the moon. It's funny you mentioned that. Werner von Braun came up with an idea. He was the Nazi who NASA took to like do the whole space program. He invented NASA. He's the one who got us to the moon, the Nazi man.
Yeah.
His idea, he wanted to colonize the whole solar system, and he thought we could do it by like 2000.
Those guys dreamt big.